Honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Panel 1 that focuses on women empowerment and gender equality, 25 years after the Beijing Declaration. Women empowerment and gender equality are not a singular issue that emphasizes on the rights of the women. Promoting and protecting women's rights ensure peaceful and inclusive societies and also contributes to social and economic development. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres made gender parity and equality as one of his priorities in his agenda. Under his leadership, the United Nations has become a gender equal organization with 50-50% representation of women and men in the senior leadership levels. This is a great achievement in policy change that inspires millions of women and girls around the world. Now, it is my honor to introduce our moderator for Panel 1, Ms. Donna Orender, who is the founder and CEO of the Orender Unlimited and Generation W. Ms. Orender was the former president of the Women's National Basketball Association. Her passionate pursuit of working on behalf of women and girls is a result of her personal journey as a professional athlete, a corporate executive, a leader of an iconic women business, WNBA, a board member and a founder of Generation W. Ms. Donna Orender, the floor is yours.
Good morning and welcome to all of you who are distinguished guests who are joining us this morning. It's my privilege and honor today to sit beside these remarkable women in the Zoom fashion that we are living in to moderate this opening panel on women empowerment and gender equality 25 years after the Beijing Declaration. Just recently, my organization, Generation W, whose mission is educating, inspiring, and connecting women girls while building community, hosted our annual thought leadership event with the theme focused on Vision 2020. It seemed to make a lot of sense a year ago when planning began. We were excited to explore how we see the world, the differing lenses, perspectives, and who is focusing on what and why. And then who could have predicted just how widely our lenses would be, our eyes would be opened, especially by something that we could not see. A small antigen that would literally turn the world upside down, COVID-19. We gathered today in a way previously unimagined, and yet eagerly anticipated. I loved seeing all of those hellos at the beginning when I logged on earlier, as we need to be together. The interconnectivity of our global community and the need for connection has never been more apparent. As the pandemic continues to disproportionately impact women and girls, it has laid bare the inequities that continue in place around the globe. Despite our efforts to the contrary, our challenges have not lessened. Our distinguished panelists will share their unique perspectives as we focus this morning on gender equality and women empowerment, hoping to move further along the vision of the platform in action created in Beijing. I find that our sense of urgency and pursuit of actionable change is heightened by the recent loss of one of our greatest champions, leaders, and warriors, the American Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who with her tremendous vision, intellect, and powerful words and writings paved the way for policy which initiated tangible and actionable changes in creating a more equitable world. And while progress has been made, we are all well aware that women continue to disproportionately, again, represent the encumbered, the beleaguered, the impoverished, and the embattled. In my work and passionate pursuits, I've been struck by how the world speaks to us. It tells us, women us, in a myriad of ways, who is worth more and who is worth less. As an athlete who competed at all levels and ultimately as a professional athlete, every day there were signs, there were signals, and there was silence. And it showed how the world valued me, or actually didn't. And it was the same for ultimately the strong, accomplished women I was privileged to represent as the president of the WNBA. It speaks to all of us, our daughters and our sons, every day, whether we choose to see it or not, in the resources afforded, economic support, business partnerships, marketing relationships, overall visibility, media support, fields to play on. It's a long list. And when you strip it down, truthfully, what are we really talking about? It's about power and who has it and who does not. And ultimately, how do we work together to show that power shared is power amplified? We know research has proven that diverse voices in any room where decisions are made produces better results. We know that women make great leaders, they are innovators, and most recently we've seen that as it has been women leaders who have chartered the most effective responses to COVID for their countries. To use a sports analogy, when you're putting together a team to compete, talent is a difference maker. And having access to your entire talent pool, not just 48 or 49%, right? Men and women only makes you stronger. It makes us stronger, our families, our communities, our cities, our nations. And to that end, one of the more impactful tools we have today is not new at all. It's been proven to work for boys for generations, and equal access for sports for girls is a game changer for everyone. The physical and emotional benefits of better health, increased strength and confidence, specifically a reduction in the incidence of cancers, is life-changing. Girls learn how to compete. Boys and men learn how to watch and engage with girls who compete. Girls learn how to lead others and themselves, and as they go, so do their families and our communities. This is not about making elite athletes, although that will and can happen. It's about building community, an inclusive community. As sports speaks loudly to men. It's something they can see, a place where they can relate. It's a common space to build respect and understanding and learn together. Granted, it is more challenging in some villages and cities than others, but it is happening as men increasingly come to champion their daughters and their opportunities. The power of sports drives our global institutions. It lifts nations, forges peace, and is the greatest of international languages. We can all speak about the power of the ball. You pick one. And most importantly, how when we share that power, we share that ball, teams win. And that is statistically verifiable. It is about the extra pass. It's not holding on to it for yourself. It's imperative that our future teams have gender parity and that young girls who continue to face the realities of child marriage, genital mutilation, trafficking, domestic violence, and lack of educational opportunities are given the chance to compete and succeed, just as it has been for young boys for generations. I had the privilege recently to participate as a judge in Beyond Sports initiative that drives collaboration to increase the ability for organizations to drive social change through sport and impact the SDGs. And in this case, a particular focus on gender equality. It was exciting and inspiring to see how soccer, football globally, becomes a platform for teamwork and physical strength, but also a knowledge base for sharing better maternal health practices and education around child marriage in Uganda and India. In Zambia, football is a way of teaching through the Girls Money Savvy Project how the girls can become financially literate, and they learn how to earn money to support their schooling, much as the boys do. In Nepal, and I'm sure our panelist, Mona Ansari, has heard of the Empowering Women of Nepal group that works with disadvantaged young women and girls, offering a comprehensive training program to become trekking guides. Women who show up with no self-esteem or a pathway to hope, emerge with leadership skills and opportunities to become economically independent with an ability to pursue education. As reported, they become multipliers. They become multipliers of positive social change, changing social norms in their communities and beyond. Isn't that the kind of virus that we want? A positive viral experience. In America, we have many organizations, including the Women's Sports Foundation, whose mission is to unlock the possibilities in every girl and woman through the power of sport. And it's been founded by the inimitable, the extraordinary Billie Jean King. The strong correlation between athletic and business success speaks to the support of sport as a difference-making strategy in changing the trajectory of girls' and women's lives. With EY research reporting a 94% of executive women having a background in sport, 80% of Fortune 500 women executives having played competitive sports, and over 60% of those women believing that playing sports contributed positively to their career success. And they are joined in that belief by male executives as well. As for me, I am one of those women. Sports allows me to sit today with all of you esteemed leaders. I am part of a community, a global community of athletes who have lived firsthand the opportunity to realize self, and then team, and then world. It's the power of mind and body that enables the power of change. Yet we're still very much on the front lines of fighting for gender equality and equity here in America, both on our playing fields and in our boardrooms. When I look at the game clock on this team sport called life, I am dismayed that we are too far into overtime with respect to the wins we are looking for. Girls, women, their families are losing their opportunities, which are our collective opportunities. We must all learn that this is a we situation. And one of the core beliefs at Generation W is that when you elevate a woman, you elevate us all. And that intergenerational mentorship is the way that we can all learn, live, and ultimately lead together. I have learned from my cherished experiences with Vital Voices, a global NGO born out of the conference in Beijing, that when you invest in women, you improve the world. They bring forward an undeniable truth that women are essential to progress, to their communities, and that our world cannot move forward without their full participation. Perhaps that's why we are moving so slowly. And I want to thank their great leader, Nelson. I will close my remarks the way I began, with a return to the late and esteemed Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who shared with us her thought on a meaningful life. She said, a meaningful life is living not for oneself, but for one's community. I'm proud to be here today to stand with all of you on behalf of our community, our global community, where devotion to equity and equality are goals worth fighting for every day. And you're going to hear from these women who do just that. Let's remember that what we don't see can be just as informative as what we do. Let's reach for the new ideas, break out of the box, seek innovation, deploy technology for its best and highest usage. Recognize that we must discard strategies that are not providing results, and demand with our actions that an acceleration of progress is the only step that we can take. The stakes are high, not only for our daughters, but for our sons, for our families, our communities. Life is a team sport, and gender equality is a game changer. Let's change the game, for when we do, we all win. At this point in time, I'd like to thank you all for staying with us, and I'd like to introduce our first panelist, a remarkable woman, Uriel Gudelkin. She was the previous gender program coordinator for the Committee on the Status of Women in New York and the UN coordinator for Unchained at Last, which is an organization that fights to stop early marriage in the US. She recently ended her term as co-chair of the Working Group on Girls. Her professional experience is in project management, marketing, and public relations, with a passion for human rights. Uri is always looking to partner with international organizations to bring gender equality to global attention, while mentoring young adults to be inspired and care about human rights. It's my pleasure to introduce Uriel Gudelkin.
Wonderful. What an introduction, and what an inspiring message to get us going. I mean, half the stuff you said is already in my notes, so I'm going to just dive right in. And I'm just so inspired by your story. You're right on point with what Beijing Platform for Action was all about, especially mentioning Vital Voices, a partner that we've worked with as well. Hello, everyone out there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening in the world. Yes, my name is Uriel Gudelkin, and honestly, I could not imagine me being here with these esteemed panelists only a few years ago. I am the reason why gender equality is important. I am the girl who needed so much to have a voice when I was married off at an early age, depriving me of my education. I'm not just sitting here as an expert, but the embodiment of who we should be fighting for. But I want to just dive right in and, just talk about what NGO CSW is all about and what are we doing with generation equality this year. I don't want to repeat all the talking points. We all know what COVID-19 did to us. Well, I can tell you what it did to NGO CSW. We were organizing our largest gathering last March in New York City during Commission on the Status of Women, which is our mandate, right? We bring voices of women and girls globally to the headquarters at the United Nations. We had about 20,000 women signed up to come for that event. It was going to be the second coming of Beijing Platform for Action while we celebrate Beijing Plus 25. My team alone had organized 550 panel discussions in the 2 weeks that the CSW was supposed to happen. I mean, I can give you so many numbers of what we were gearing up to, and of course that silent enemy, COVID-19 came, but that's not a surprise, right? I mean, is anybody surprised that COVID-19 has, affected us so deeply because the world was not on the right track. We were not really taking care of ourselves and the world. We were not realizing the interconnectedness that we have. We were just abusing this planet and each other and really buying into this patriarchy, colonialism, capitalism. You know, I'm sure I'm speaking to a lot of experts who know what I'm talking about. But here we are, right? So here we are again, rethinking, regalvanizing, rebringing women and girls and our allies, our men and boys who are on board with us, because we obviously cannot do this without the collaboration that has to be there. So we canceled and we went completely online, and we started doing some events on Zoom right away, and we just kept going with what we know to do best, which is giving voices to women and girls. At the same time, we're also organizing what we're calling Generation Equality Forum, spearheaded by UN Women, partnered with France and Mexico, and that is still going on. You know, you can go on the website, it's very easy, just Google, I can give you the link as well. But it's Generation Equality Forum, and you can see all the planning that's been happening since last year and that we're still moving forward. And the idea about that Generation Equality Forum is not to compete with CSW, with Beijing Platform for Action. All of this is really interconnected. We are open and really begging for ideas and collaborations on how can we move the needle, right? Because we've been fighting for centuries, but let's say at least for the last 25 years, to specifically implement Beijing Platform for Action. I think that document was the strongest document that we've had for gender equality. But the problem is that we never knew how to really hold our governments accountable for implementation. You know, there are so many amazing documents at the UN right now. And if we really adhere to their agreements, we would not be in this situation. Imagine if we had global health coverage. Imagine if we had truly the direct connection to what climate change is and how it has really affected us all. We would all be better off. But let's just say that we are where we are, and then now we have to really, truly see how we can make a difference. And one of the things that we've been really talking about is really modeling a shared leadership for humanity, right? So this is what we want to do as women and girls, and how we are leading our platform going forward. So in that sense, our next CSW 65, which is coming up in March, I mean, I know that seems like such a long time from now, but we actually do start organizing early in fall. We are bringing our CSW 65 forum 100% online. And of course, you're going to see all of that information on our website as well. It's ngocsw.org, very easy to find as well. But you know, the idea is to not only just advocate and bring voices here in headquarters, which, by the way, even last year we were noticing it's really not sustainable. To have 20,000 people travel and come to New York City, yes, it's exciting. Yes, the face-to-face is much better. I would rather be with my colleagues right now around the table. But the fact of the matter is that we have more access right now because this is online. More people are joining because all they need is a laptop and a Wi-Fi. Now, I understand there's also that digital difference that when people do not have a laptop and a Wi-Fi, but we're working around that as well. We're working with grassroots organizations where they can bring grassroots women and girls around a table under a tent if they have to, and share their laptops so that they get the information of what it is that we're doing globally to speak for them. And I'll come back to what I said. Like, if I really knew what my rights were at 14, if I was really allowed the voice that I needed, would I have been married off that young? I mean, I'm lucky that I ended up in New York City. I'm lucky that I ended up with a husband who was older than me, but was also supportive in some ways. But honestly, I under any circumstances, I don't see how an early marriage can help any society, right? Because when you take education away from a girl, when you take her voice away, then you're taking away that community's force and strength. It's like Donna said, even in sports, why deal with only the 49%? Everybody needs to be on the table. I think I'm going to kind of slow down here because I think I'm almost at my time. I kind of lost track of time because we started a little bit later. So perhaps I will save a few minutes as well and then maybe give some time for Q&A later. I'm just saying all of this information is really on our website. Please join us. Do not give up on humanity by giving up on women and girls. And just in honor of what you said with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I say fight for, this is her quote, obviously, and I'm just inspired by her too in this last 24 hours. Fight for the things that you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you. Let's model this shared leadership and achieve gender equality together in this last decade. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Uri. We are inspired by you, your leadership. We follow you. We're so grateful for all that you have committed on behalf of all of us and are continuing to do that. So thank you. It's a pleasure now for me to introduce Mona Ansari. She's National Human Rights Commission member, commissioner from Nepal. She's going to speak about gender perspectives and women's leadership in policymaking. She's a renowned rights activist of Nepal and currently serving, as I said, a member of the National Human Rights Commission. She started her career as a journalist and subsequently graduated as a lawyer, becoming the first and only Nepal's female attorney from the Muslim community. She worked with Amnesty International Nepal, Action Aid Nepal, the UNDP, Idea International, and other national organizations. Her work has been in the field of women empowerment, social inclusion, access to justice, gender, social justice, peace building, and protection of the rights of the marginalized groups. Yet another incredible woman whose work and standing tall on behalf of all of us. Welcome, Mona.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm highly inspired by your introductory note, Donna. It's incredible. Good morning to you all, and dear chair of the session, plenary members, and dear fellow participants coming from the 30 country joining this event. It's my pleasure to share a couple of things, what I have learned in my career. Let me start by saying that when the Beijing summit was taking place in 1995, I was a young girl. Today, after 25 years, I can see that Nepal has made a notable progress in women's rights, gender equality, and social inclusion. However, the deep-rooted patriarchal norms and practice continue to undermine the women's rights of equality, self-respect, and independence. As Juna talked about, share about the trekking experience from Nepal, how the inspiring girls went for the trekking. Nepal has gone through major challenges in last 2 decades. Following a decade-long armed conflict, a peace process which started in 2006 transformed the country into a secular republic and federal state. I'm delighted to say that women had a significant role in this transformation. The first elected Constituent Assembly in 2008 had 197 women members out of 601. The second one had 176 women. A new constitution was adopted in 2015. Nepal's constitution has ensured women's representation in federal and provincial parliament, as well as local government bodies, 33% and 40% respectively. Currently, 90 of the 275 MPs are women in lower house. The upper house has 22 women members out of 59. 6 of the 10 parliamentary committees are headed by women lawmakers. Election Act has ensured 50% women candidates in leadership position of the local bodies. In 2016, local elections were elected as a deputy chair or mayor of 700 local bodies out of 753. Also, 18 women were elected as a mayor or chair. Based on the Act, over 6,500 women were elected in a local body. These are Dalit women, and we all know in South Asia, Dalits are highly oppressed caste group. According to 2019 survey that looked over women's representation in the parliament, Nepal ranked second entire in Asia. This is a significant achievement compared to 1999's parliament, which only had a 5.8% women in a parliament. Reservation policy and electoral reform had been instrumental in promoting women's participation in policy-making role. In the Civil Service Act, women have a 33% reservation of the total 45% inclusive quota. Army and Police Act has also made a reservation for women. However, inclusion of the women from the socially excluded group still is a major challenge for us. Despite of these positive indicators, women still face multiple challenges. None of the major political parties have a women in decision-making position. Therefore, selection or election of women in any higher position remain under control of the male decision maker in a political party. The legislative ratio of women does not reflect in the mainstream appointments. When it comes about the women's inclusion in ministerial position, Nepal ranks at 123rd position. The constitutional principle of the inclusive appointment in the government is also frequently overlooked, and women are given a little opportunity. The representation in judiciary is a very important factor so how Nepal is improving constitutional bodies, civil service, and security sector is low. 3 of the 21 judges of the Supreme Court are female. Likewise, if of the 14 of the 148 judges of High Court are women. In 2019, only 3 women were appointed out of 30 Nepali embassies. It is truly disappointing to see that the political parties have limited women mostly to deputy mayor position in the local election. I would say that the women leadership in decision making cannot be achieved without their economic empowerment. In the local, in the Global Gender Gap report of 2018, which looked at women's participation in economy, Nepal ranked 110 among the other 149 participating countries. This shows that Nepali women are discouraged of economic participation. Factors like their poor social status, access to information, and discriminatory gender practices block women's free access to economic opportunity. For example, the Foreign Employment Act prohibited women from seeking foreign employment and foreign domestic work without permission of their guardian or spouse. And the government, although some progress, measures have been introduced recently. Another challenge that Nepali government yet has to tackle is a protection from the violence against women. And I think it's not only Asia; it's a worldwide problem. The violence against women take a place in forms of trafficking, rape, domestic violence, child marriage, and in Nepal, dowry-related violence, witchcraft, and harmful traditional practices such as chowpuri or menstrual isolation. Every year, women are dying due to the menstrual isolation. The Parliament in 2017 enacted and amended various laws to end violence against women and girls and protect the survivors, such as the Domestic Violence Act, Anti-Trafficking Act, the Sexual Harassment Act at workplace. In 2016, national strategy was adopted to end child marriage. This is the global commitment that Nepal has introduced this policy. Recently, the government has decided to increase punishment in the crime of acid attack to ensure protection of the survivor. National Women Commission has established 24-hour helpline to tackle this to reconcile or provide the legal assistance to the victims. 240 women and children senior citizen center have been expanded throughout the country throughout the country. In last 10 years, I have seen. I myself have worked with legislative committees, policymakers, and stakeholders to amend and enact several laws related to the violence against women. However, weak implementation of the laws remains a critical challenge. Impunity prevails due to failure of proper investigation and prosecution in serious cases of the violence against women. Lack of shelter and rehabilitation support for the victim is the major challenge. According to our police data, filing the case against violence against women is basically coming the domestic violence and rape and attempt to rape and witchcraft allegation. It is rising during the last 5 years. Being a state party to the CEDAW, along with the other major human rights instrument, Nepal is committed to guarantee and promote gender equality. The principle of non-discrimination and gender equality have been enshrined in the Constitution of Nepal. However, the unequal citizenship provision for women remains in a violation of Article 9 of CEDAW. Let me conclude by saying that this event is taking place at a time when COVID pandemic has brought an extraordinary challenge for us. We must not allow pandemic and lockdown to be an excuse for ongoing violation of women's and children, women's and girls' rights. In In the other hand, we must appreciate the luxury that this gives us to step back and think and organize, to look at our effort so far and learn from them so we bounce back stronger than ever when this nightmare is over. We have still opportunity to meet 2030 SDG goal. I will stop here. I don't want to bore you to giving a longer speech of mine. And I really very much thank you to the organizer for such a wonderful plenary. I just listening as curiously you all who spoke before me. And I welcome all the questions if you have. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Ansari. We really appreciate it. And I really do love your ending statement where you're encouraging all of us to jump back stronger than ever before. I think we all share that urgent and needed desire. It is my pleasure now to introduce our third panelist, Professor Diane Elson. She will speak about inclusive economies for women's empowerment. A little bit about Diane. She's from the United Kingdom. Hi, Diane. She's an emeritus professor in the Department of Sociology at Essex University. She's a visiting professor at the WISE Research Centre, Glasgow Caledonian University, and research associate at the Center for Women's Global Leadership, Rutgers University. I know that place well. They do amazing work. She's a member of the UN Committee for Development Policy and is a consultant to UN Women. In 2016, Dr. Elson was awarded the Leontief Prize for advancing the frontiers of economic thought. She has served as chair of the UK Women's Budget Group and is vice president of the International Association for Feminist Economics. She is the author of many publications and articles on gender equality and economic policy, and we are so glad that you are with us today. Thank you. Thank you. I have a page of notes here. Thank you so much for all of your insights, your learning, and your dedication. We're going to move to our next guest now, Dia K. Wynn. She's going to speak to us about technological advancements for women's empowerment, opportunities, and challenges. And interesting, when the Platform for Action was first written 25 years ago, there really wasn't that much of a mention of technology, right, Dia? I mean, everything has happened so recently. Dia has worked in technology for 25 years, building, operating, delivering, and leading in early and growth stage companies. She has a passion for developing current and emerging leaders, promoting STEM to the underrepresented, and driving diversity, equity, and inclusion. In this capacity as the artificial intelligence ethicist at Amazon Web Services, an incredible title, by the way, and I'm sure amazingly challenging work, she is responsible for defining strategy and standards to guide consultants and customers in responsible use of AI and elevate potential areas of algorithmic bias and lack of transparency in development and deployment work, which often adversely impacts marginalized communities. We are so happy and so looking forward to hearing what you have to share with us today. Dia, thank you.
Greetings, and thank you for that introduction. I, like all of those that spoke before me, am delighted to be in the company of these other great and accomplished women that are on the panel presenting today. As introduced, I am Dia Wynn. I want to share with you a story of a little girl who was born in Harlem and grew up in a single parent, poverty-stricken home or apartment in the South Bronx in New York. She spent her education early in the public school system. This girl was taught to value and take seriously her education. And by the third grade, her diligence in her studies was rewarded. She received a computer for having high academic achievement in her school. She was fascinated by this technology, and it opened up a world for her unlike any she had been exposed to or frankly was aware of. None of the fairy tales she watched had women with jobs. None of the books she read told stories of women working in computers or science. It wasn't reflected in any of her school studies either. The prevailing thought and pictures from media portrayed certain roles for women as homemakers, teachers, or maybe a nurse. And it wasn't something she saw in the women around her. You can imagine, even though she was in new, exciting, and an intriguing territory, it was foreign and frightening. Perhaps she was too young to know this. So with all the intellect and curiosity she had, she made a decision at 8 that set her on a course to study and pursue a career in computers. Technology changed her life. That girl is me. I share that story because it speaks to the very heart and intent of the Beijing Declaration, our goal for gender equality and women empowered. It's not about me. My story is not uncommon. You only rise to the level that you're exposed. I come from meager beginnings, but it was exposure to technology at an early age and education that changed the trajectory of my life. You've heard already from some of those on the panel that stressed this as well. Two ingredients are important: exposure and education. I consider exposure or access to education and technology as critical in us being able to see gender equality. However, I would be giving an incomplete picture if I failed to mention how our dream and our work towards gender equality is undermined because of systems, policies, socio-cultural norms, and patriarchal structures that have supported mindsets of gender inequality for decades, or dare I say, for hundreds of years. My journey has been one met with opposition and struggle, not just because of being a woman, rather coupled with the scourge of being Black, an African-American woman in America. In order to see the promise of the Beijing Declaration and UN Sustainable Development Goals, we must be determined to address systemic and institutional barriers that perpetuate discrimination against and keep all of us from being equal. And that cannot be done by women or people from marginalized communities alone. It requires the active work and partnership of men and the majority. Now, when I reflect on the Beijing Declaration and the Platform for Action from 1995, this document reflecting 189 countries signifying their commitment to achieving equality, development, and peace for women and girls worldwide, I was nearing the end of my undergraduate studies in computer science at Spelman College, and the parent company where I now work was just 1 year old. The unmanned Galileo spacecraft arrived at planet Jupiter. Ebola was ravaging the Congo and Central Africa. NATO bombing led to the peace agreement after thousands of Muslims were killed and women raped. The US troops pulled out of Somalia, where women were disproportionately affected by war, rape, and mutilation. At least 60 million girls worldwide were without access to primary school educations. More than 2/3 of the world's illiterate adults were women. And while 58% of the world population was women, only 46% over 16 actually had jobs. That was 1995. These, among other events and statistics, all reflect severe impediments to the advancement of women and to development. That's what made the Declaration so monumental. Since then, we've seen slow progress in areas of women's equality globally, but there have been rapid advances in technology that can benefit the cause. Broadband makes higher speed internet access available in homes. Flash was introduced for rich content delivery on the web. Google was founded, transforming how we attain data. Social networking gives rise to a new paradigm for connecting, interacting, and influencing. Cloud computing provides internet access to democratize IT resources. Artificial intelligence and big data emerge, driving change in how we live and work. And quantum computing promises unparalleled processing power to solve previously unapproachable problems. If we think about it, in its simplest form, society as a whole has benefited from methods and systems and devices improved or invented that use knowledge to solve problems. That's technology. These specific technological advancements I mentioned provide jobs and upward mobility, create income, stability, and opportunities to build up, inherit, and share in wealth. So technology is providing us with tools to tackle gender inequality and empower women. Digital platforms, social media, medical, and emerging technologies have opened up avenues for engagement in cultures where women's physical mobility is restricted and their voices are being silenced, where online activism and community building is increasing the awareness and engagement around women's health and rights issues. Career opportunities and learning is made available online and in apps and on mobile devices. Women are setting up businesses and earn income connected to wider global sources for financing, marketing, and funding. Femtech introduces technical solutions that address female health needs exclusively, including diagnostic tools, software, mobile apps, and wearables. Women are participating in political campaigns and can have greater access to knowledge and general information. This is technology used for good. And the results is seen in women empowered in areas like Afghanistan, where women use Twitter to engage with a U.S. congressional hearing on women's inclusion in peace and security. In East Africa and the Philippines, where spin a block bonds application is allowing secure money transfer and financial access to women in rural areas. An Israeli company, Mobile ODT, offers cervical cancer screening, leveraging an AI-based smartphone app. And in India, Egypt, Lebanon, and other countries, HarassMap is an online platform using reporting and mapping to tackle sexual harassment in education. Even with these advancements, there is so much yet to be done. According to the World Economic Forum, their global gender gap report that benchmarks 150 countries on their progress towards gender parity across 4 different dimensions indicated that it will take approximately 100 years for us to see gender equality globally. This is because outside of the US, women on average are 26% less likely than men to have a smartphone. Men hold 75% of parliamentary seats worldwide and 73% of managerial positions. Women are paid 16% less than men on average, and in certain regions that rises all the way up to 35% or more. 50 to 78% of women experience gender discrimination on their jobs, and nearly 1 in 5 women have faced domestic violence in the last year. Raya Bikshari said, when half of the human population is denied their full potential, the world as a whole is at an enormous disadvantage. This is where the work remains. True women's empowerment is for women to be full players in every area of society with freedom to create, earn, own, and build. That means being able to take advantage, full advantage of the benefits of technology and have a seat at the table. In the words of the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, women belong in all places decisions are being made. Women have to be in boardrooms and in government. Women have to be employed and be entrepreneurs. Women have to have access to healthcare and own the decisions for their bodies. Women have to be educated and be able to pave the way for those that will follow. Women have to be included in history and make history. Women have to see themselves in positions in society and be seen by society. To see more women empowered, women need exposure, education, and a real commitment to change. That means our collective willingness and courage to put down policies and systems of oppression and create opportunity. In the words of my CEO of AWS, Andy Jassy, we need missionaries, not mercenaries. People willing to do the work to make women equal and empowered. Thank you.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Yes, missionaries, not mercenaries. So much good stuff. And I hope we're going to have time for some questions. We're going to come back to this, Dia, but thank you for your passionate and brilliant comments and the work that you are doing as well. And finally, let us welcome Dr. Marina Sorokina. She is the head of the Department of History at the Alexander Solzhenitsyn Center for the Study of the Russian Diaspora. Prior to this position, Dr. Sorokina was a senior research fellow at the Institute for the Advanced Studies in Humanities at the Russian State University for the Humanities. She has also served at the Russian Academy of Sciences Archive in Moscow. She joins us from Moscow today to speak about Russia's best practices on implementing the SDG number 5, achieving gender equality and empowering all women and girls. Thank you for joining us, Doctor.
Dear colleagues, I'm very happy to be here and to speak of a subject that is one of the dearest to me. Women scholars in exile, women and migration. It's a very urgent topic for discussion in our contemporary world. In contrast to many other countries, Russia survived in the 20th century three major waves of mass migration. Refugees of the Bolshevik Revolution and Civil War, refugees of the World War II, migration after the Gorbachev's perestroika. Many thousands of Russians left their homeland and traditional environment under the pressure of the political persecution and settled down in many countries in the world. In Latin America, especially in Brazil, a number of scholars and scientists were within these emigres. Issues concerning scholars in exile have attracted attention, especially in relation to the large immigration wave that hit Europe facing the Nazi regime. This has been already well documented by the academic works. In contrast, there has been no scholarly treatment of the Russian academic migration in the 20th century that has grappled systematically with the topic on the basis of archival research. For many years, refugees, invalids, and dissidents were hidden groups ignored by the Soviet authorities, civil society, and public memory. Only today, historians shifted to study of those groups and the life story of one of the very interesting women scholars in exile, Helena Antipov, Russian-born Brazilian psychologist and educator, founder of the system of support to disabled children. Her life is very important in our perspective. While Helena Antipov, as many others women refugee scholars, were searching for professional employment in the changing European environment, Brazil opened a window of opportunities for her and many other scholars and scientists. Russia, Switzerland, Brazil, these Antipos locuses mark not only the geographical shift of the emigre scholar positions, but reflected new communications, the ways how the European scholarly approaches and techniques were applied to the new institutions before World War II. The role of the emigre scholars, and especially women emigre scholars, was pioneering in this process. As such, Antipov's story contributes to gender and immigration history, to the social history of psychology and human rights. But it also demonstrates the ways of formation of very strong and persistent transnational or international network of scholars whose professional biographies on the level of concepts and ideas grew up from multicultural intellectual components and traditions. Antipov's work, the work of many Russian refugee women, was marked by a strong commitment with the achievement of human ideals of social justice and happiness. As a scientist, director of one of the first laboratories of psychology established in Brazil, she dedicated herself to knowing Brazilian children so that their education would be better oriented. Following the guidelines of the Genevan Declaration of Children's Rights, issued by the League of Nations in 1924, she focused education as a right in itself. In her views, schools were not supposed to provide a limited citizenship consciences. On the contrary, citizenship was seen as the consequences of a steady support for the development of the children's capacities. Dissatisfied with her experience with war and revolution in Europe, Helena Antipov strove for harmony, not for struggle. In her view, social harmony would be attained if each individual were given the opportunity to develop his own calling. In this development, education had a central role. Thank you very much for your attention. I am giving you this example in order to show the great role of the women scholar in the contemporary world. We're looking at the history, but we are living today. I hope that our network will work for many years. Thank you very much for your attention.
Dr. Gudelkin, we appreciate your remarks. And now it's time for all of us to gather on the stage. I'm very excited about this. I will wait. We're going to welcome back all of our panelists. Uri, Diane Elson, Dia, and is Mona joining us as well? Hi, everyone. How are you? Dia, I love how you put all of that technology in such positive. We all have love-hate relationships but you gave us a very love relationship today, and I appreciate that, which was great. We have some questions from our audience, and I will go through some of them, but I would like to start, if I could. There is such extraordinary depth and breadth from all of you, your passions, right? We are those young girls who we are trying to help today in so many different ways, right? We find ourselves all around the world. We all acknowledge, and I took notes on everything that all of you said, that we could be a lot further along. So if I was to ask you, if you're sitting by yourself or you're out with a group or whatever, and you're tossing up a glass of wine, what's an innovative, out-of-the-box idea that can accelerate gender equality? Because clearly, after 25 years, what we've been doing is not making it happen fast enough. And the numbers for equity and equality, we don't even want to talk about them, but they're like, 100 years, 200 years. We're not waiting for that. So I'm just curious. Diane, as you hang around with your feminist economist friends and beyond.
Well, let me share with you an idea that comes from a commission on a gender equal economy I've been chairing in the UK. We'll be launching our report next week. And what we're calling for is a creation of a caring economy. A caring economy which invests a lot in care, but which also asks employers to care for their employees. To respect their labour rights, to give them care leave for looking after their family members. So we want and argue for a care economy that brings together gender equality, well-being and sustainability. The polling and focus groups we've been doing in the UK, this has been getting quite a positive response, and we're getting quite a positive response from men who see how that could benefit them too, because there are many men who want to take more role in providing care, but they're hampered by stereotypes, social norms, by employers who say, no, that's only for mums, dads shouldn't be doing that. So a caring economy, that's what we need, not the kind of economies we've got at the moment.
Cheer, and I think that COVID is especially shedding a light on this. Women's rights, right? Liberate men's rights. I think I heard you say that as well. Anybody have any reactions or an additional idea? I think we're on a roll here. This is fantastic.
I can jump right in. I wasn't sure. Yes. Well, if I had to use one word, I would say knowledge. But that obviously one word, it's sharing of the knowledge and education, because so many people do not even know what their rights are, right? This is why I keep talking about documents are not just important. They're just papers filed or in computers. We just need to learn what our governments, both locally and internationally, have committed to do, and then make sure that it's implemented and we hold them accountable. I think also for just me and my sisters, you know, a glass of wine, or, you know, my colleagues that I'm organizing CSW with, I think the conversations that we're having is about shared leadership, as I mentioned before, about having intergenerational dialogue. We have to stop working in silos, and then realizing that all of these topics are interconnected, right? It's not just the technology, it's not just the economy, it's not just the violence against women. They are all interconnected. And of course, we can argue forever on what the stem is. How do we really pull it out from the stem, right? I mentioned a few about patriarchy, colonialism, this othering of others, right? And the fear mongering that we create for anybody who's different than, I'm sorry to say, with all due respect to the white men out there, it's the white men in general who have created this fear mongering of the other, of the women, of the of blackness, of LGBTQI rights. So we need to really understand where this is stemming from, that knowledge, that education that we can give to others, so that we can stop it from the root. And when we see it happening in our own circles, in feminist movements, I have to say that as well. We know that it happens in our movement as well. We need to call it out, and we need to stop it. We have to be the modeling of it.
Yes,
You know,
please.
I love
please.
what both Diane and Hori said, and I was thinking that there probably isn't something super innovative or creative that we need to do. It is getting back to some of the basics that we probably need to do. I mean, no technology, and we talked about, and I appreciate you saying that. I shared some positive things about technology. No technology is going to solve the challenges that we have with accountability. No technology is going to solve what Ori talked about as far as us leaving out marginalized individuals, or this sort of insider-outsider culture. And really it requires, I believe, going back to some basics around accountability, as well as people having courage enough to embrace, and I mention this in particular, people from the majority communities, to embrace and create opportunity and open up doors for the other, right? And we're seeing some of that now, right? There have been numbers and scores of women that are receiving CEO positions and higher profile positions in this last couple of months, many of which have been people of color, Black and African American women, but we're seeing a rise in that specific area, and I think it needs to be more of that. But we also have to create a culture of accountability, right? When do we hold our leaders, our business people, organizations, our governments accountable to do the right kinds of things for the people, not just for themselves?
Right. I actually highlighted when you said we need men and the majority, right? So that's interconnectivity. And Uri, I hear you saying that we need to think more interconnectedly. And actually, it's really the repatterning of how we think and how we work. Perhaps our goals are really the ones we need, but how we get to them needs to be restructured. Mona, welcome. I'm glad you were able to join us. We would love you. We're brainstorming here on how do we accelerate progress. Any new, I am sure you have an idea that you've been holding on to that you would love to put out there and we can jump on.
Yeah, there is no disagreement what the fellow panelists have shared their ideas. My thought, in my opinion, I think the collective effort is required. When we are talking about the women, we need to all type of women, like we could not isolate anyone, and they have a plenty of like a knowledge. If I am talking about the indigenous women, they have a lot of different kind of knowledge. We need to share their knowledge and build better for our future. So in our context, it's a very difficult. As I already shared my notes in speaking, that women is very difficult to getting a chance in a decision making role. If the women are not in a decision making position, they couldn't decide anything, and the policy and then plan and then everything is made by men. So where our women is going to, we are just their path. We need to force to walk on their path. That's my opinion. I think we need to bring more women on the leadership position so that they can decide what is the workable for them, not other will decide for them.
Right.
Thank you.
Just like we don't want, as Uri said, we don't want others deciding for us. We want to be part of that process. And I also really love the othering of the others. Don't have much time, but I did want to recognize the many people who have shared this panel, have engaged in their own minds, and now have posted on the chat. Ahmet Ibrahimit, and forgive me, please, it's nice to be among people who are striving for the betterment of global society. So that is kudos to all of you. And Michelle Williams, who speaks about being excited about the movement and progress that women have made through the years as it relates to women around the world, our economic, social, and emotional empowerment. Progress makes it possible for little girls, young and older women to dream big and achieve those dreams. Well, I'm hoping today does help further that effort. Catherine Klein said, as the moderator noted, the key issue is power. And how do we convince men who have that power that it's better to share it? You've addressed that, Dia, in your remarks specifically. Anybody have any thoughts on how we continue to move towards a collective power sharing model?
I think I have a very shortly I would like to share is a power sharing men feeling a threat that women are coming in the in a power sharing. They are encroaching their space, which is wrong. They must convince. We are talking about the gender equality, we are not talking about ourselves. We are collectively talking about equally men and women need to share on that power sharing. So I just in it here.
Yes? Okay. No. Yes. Okay. I wasn't sure. I was just taking a note. I apologize. Toko or Thoko Puli. I agree with Uri about moving from policy document to implementation and accountability. How do we achieve this?
I think it really goes back to that. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
It goes back to what I was saying about really the knowledge, right? If women and girls have the knowledge, have access to the information of what their governments are supposed to do, I think, if you just think about your own country, we know it because we're in this work right now, right? We know about Beijing Platform for Action. But especially in the United States, and it's so many other countries too, people don't even know what their governments are promising and how we can really hold them accountable. And we need to really educate women and girls on how do we do that. I think Dia's story was so touching to me. Like for her at third grade, I believe she said, when she got the internet or the laptop and she was able to explore herself. Imagine if we can give that power, that kind of knowledge to everyone to access information that is really their right. That's how we can really bring implementation.
Right. That was a beautiful image. I saw a beautiful young girl with her little laptop, so excited, right? Which we're hoping to make sure all little girls, all little boys have laptops.
You guys
today.
are funny. It was laptops back then. Those were like old block VIC 20s that barely had color. There was no color either. So
modernized it.
Well, I am sure that this is a group that we can spend much more time talking together, making progress, inspiring people and ourselves. We don't have any more time, so I thought I would end it with one question. And I want to thank, in particular, there was a woman that posted a couple times, and I just wanted to thank her. Bathsheba Smithen, thank you for your comments. We appreciate them. Here we are in the time of COVID, right? The world's kind of in upheaval. We are 25 years out of Beijing. We just had this wonderful conversation. If I asked you for one word to represent your feelings about where we sit, I'll start. So I hope I'm not taking anyone else's word, but you can replicate it. I'm going to say I am hopeful. I am hopeful. Okay. Who else? Diane, do you have a word?
That was my word, but I'm going to say I'm hopeful and I'm also inspired, right? Because of the people that I'm working with, I'm inspired of the possibilities.
Great.
Imagining. We are trying to imagine a different kind of economy. So I think we have to imagine a different kind of world and then collectively organize to get it.
I am so excited by what you presented about the caring economy, believe me. And yeah,
my word is motivated, motivated more than ever to continue to do this kind of work and to be joined with women like yourselves, but also with men and others to really forge forward and see the kind of equality and empowerment we need.
And we're motivated to work with you in that. So lead away. We are with you. And Mona.
My is a commitment.
Commitment.
Yeah.
That's
Commitment.
Awesome. So we're going to leave. We're going to leave each other and this conference with these words: hopeful, inspired, imagine, motivated, and commitment. I thank you all. I thank Semri and all of her team, the UNGA Conference 2020, for inviting all of us this opportunity to come together. Truly, where technology really showcases how bright a light it is. I look forward to staying in touch with all of you. Be well.
Luck all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.